Tony, and I'm an IT business consultant. I've been doing this for 10 years, and today I want to share with you on how to determine your costs, your IT costs in your dental clinic. Whether this applies to you, whether if you're doing a cold start or if you are upgrading your clinic, or if you're buying into a clinic and you want to upgrade the computers and servers or change of software, this should point you to a general good direction. As you are aware, we've all most likely searched something like this: dental office server cost or cost of dental IT equipment, and we're going to run into these similar Google results here. The most popular one here is the Dental Startup Academy, and you got a bunch of other advertisements from other IT firms. Now, before I dive into these articles, I just want to talk about what type of due diligence have you completed. When you're starting up a clinic, it's about figuring out who you're going to hire, and your assistants. What type of software have they been using, and if they have been using a specific software, what type of issues do they run into? And these are important questions because these things determine what your environment will look like, and ultimately it'll determine your cost. Oftentimes a lot of business owners tend to just go ahead and buy a software, buy a system, buy an environment, and then when you guys hire staff or jump into the environment, either A, there's lack of training, or B, it's not optimized for your staff, or C, the software or the hardware was never optimized for the software. Now, this conversation here applies to all dental practice software. It doesn't matter if you're in Curve, Dentrix, ClearDent, Gold, Axiom, whatever it may be, it applies to all. We're just speaking a very high-level theoretical topic here today. So the important thing is to figure out, what are the issues that your staff runs into. Once you have all that information, you should be presenting those information to a reputable IT firm, and then see what they have to say. A good one should be able to give you case studies on specific challenges and issues and how they mitigate them. At our firm, we have very specific configurations for each dental software to mitigate these risks. An example would be claims in Canada here. Alberta Blue Cross tends to have a lot of troubles when sending claims. They either freeze or stop working or just don't get acknowledged. What happens when this happens? Well, the claims doesn't get submitted. You don't get paid. That's ultimately what happens. And sometimes we've seen in the past where these are not my clients, but we've had consults with them, and we've seen the assistants just kind of leave it to the side, and the claims doesn't get submitted to a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and this hurts your cash flow. Let's go ahead and dive into an article here, and let me explain to you why this thing is, or this article here is not to best practice. So, Dental Startup Academy, I'm certain you guys been here. This is from 2017, so it's fairly dated, but the theory here is still relevant because IT best practice hasn't really changed in the last, since, as far as I know, all the way back to 2003, it hasn't really changed in how you should set up environments. And this guy is dated back to, all the way back to 2013. I'm going to get into the big pain points in here. The first one here is, he selected a Cybertron brand. I'm just going to put a notepad here just so we can keep track of everything. So the first one we have, brand of server. Another thing he's mentioned about is price. This could be a warning flag. And he's also mentioned router and Wi-Fi, so I'm going to talk about that. And this is not an ideal setup, by the way. And of course, he's mentioned firewall, and he's also mentioned backups. And of course, I'll dive into his closing remarks as well. So we're going to start here immediately with the branding of the server, and why this is this tells you that you're working with someone who is an amateur, whether they are an IT company, an IT individual, or like this gentleman here, just a dentist who is not an IT expert, but he knows what he's doing. Here's the thing: when you buy an off-brand server like Cybertron, for example, when a component breaks, such as a motherboard or a hard drive or a power supply breaks, you're not going to have anyone to lean against. And in fact, to order a part in, it's going to cause you a significant amount of downtime, and you don't want to do that. When you work with a reputable IT company, the first question is to ask them, do they have any reputable partnerships? So these are examples. It would be Microsoft, Dell, HP, or Lenovo. These are great partnerships that almost every reputable IT company should have. The reason is so that they can get you competitive pricing when they're ordering hardware, and two, they understand that these companies have local warehouses and they are able to quickly dispatch and send out to you guys that, let's say, for example, power supply breaks, there's a local warehouse nearby, and they could ship out a part either same day or it could be overnight. It is critical to have these components readily available if something were to break. Usually the off-brands they're great in pricing, they sound great, but they're not very good for business purposes. Another question to ask your reputable IT company is if they're looking into this price range here. This guy's talking about, he got a server for about $1,800. This is not the correct pricing. This is going to get you a home-based server that's going to work, but it's not going to give you any virtualized environments. Ask your IT company about virtualization and why they use virtualization. It is important to use virtualization to give you business redundancy. If you ever get attacked, or when you get attacked, or even sort of user error or some sort of corruption happens on your server by hardware, it's important to be virtualized, because your production environment should never rely on a physical piece. When that happens, or on a physical server, when you rely on that and it breaks, you're going to be out. You can't virtualize the environment. You can't access anything. When it's a virtualized environment, let's say it was hit with ransomware. That's very popular right now. If your reputable company has a on-site backup or cloud-based backup, they can just shut down the production environment, spin up a backup right away, and then you'll be up and running. If you were hit with a ransomware on a physical environment, what happens is that they have to wipe that environment, reinstall the operating system, load all the software, do all the updates, and this may take 2 or 3 days, and it may take even up to a week in order to get you up and running. So the price for this tells me, this price here, in my experience, this is not a virtualized environment, and this is not the best practice. And for any IT company to even provision this, it's not very smart, because it puts them at risk, and you're not going to be very happy because it's going to take you, anywhere between 3 days to weeks to get you up and running. This guy here, he says he's spoken to multiple IT vendors. If the IT vendor, and if they're reputable IT vendors and the price is around the same, chances are they know what they're doing. That's the reason why they're charging you that price. That's look for a reputable IT company with partnerships. That's the number one thing that you should do. How many computers you should start with? That one's a pretty straightforward question. If you got your consult, you got your front desk, you have your operatories. Each operatory should have a computer if you want to digitize everything. Most of this stuff in this article is old anyway, so I'm not gonna blast them too much. But some theoretical stuff, it's just not good. And of course, you want, if a reputable IT company would never install something like this, by the way, just because it makes diagnosing a lot more difficult. You want something that's labeled properly for people when they come in. They go, hey, something's not working, or this is disconnected. The technician should be able to go there immediately and go like, okay, this is the best practice setup. It's really easy to find things. Let's go back to my list here so I don't get off track. So I talked about the price, talked about the branding and the reasons why. Router and Wi-Fi. Let's go down. I think it was right here. Now, most of the, I'm going to search for this. So this is back in 2013, so I'm going to give him a break here. Router and Wi-Fi. This is... you should have a router, and the router should definitely have a dedicated firewall. There's very little reason why, especially if you're in healthcare. Don't gamble with this stuff. What you want to do is, instead of your Wi-Fi should be run on proper access points. Your router should have dedicated firewalls. Your server should be masked away. It should be inaccessible. They should be using separate virtual local area networks. This one here, for example, he tells me it's got limited ports, so he puts a switch. Ignore the old components, but the theory stays the same. If you put a router in and you don't use any virtual networks, and this one, most home routers like these don't support virtual networks. If you don't segregate the networks on the hardware, your server is essentially exposed. So if you have patients who are just borrowing your Wi-Fi, the right person will know what to do. Don't just do things in an amateur way. To find a professional that knows what they're doing. Split up your network. You should have proper virtual networks. And by virtual networks, I don't necessarily mean just because you have a guest Wi-Fi and a office Wi-Fi, that doesn't mean it's segregated. It's not. The segregation and two Wi-Fi networks are two different things. So make sure you speak to a professional to know how to separate those two things. Another thing here is firewall. Yeah, like I said, just pick up a dedicated firewall. It's not that difficult. Backups. This guy here is using an external drive. He takes home as a secondary backup. This is not overkill. This is good practice. It's just tedious. If you have the work ethic and you have that memory to take it home every day and do the backup, great. There are better alternatives nowadays. There are ways to set up cloud backups, either to Amazon Web Services. Actually, if you're with Henry Schein with Dentrix, you get a version of backup that is fairly cost effective. Speak to your dental rep about that. Or just run a very good local backup, or even you can run a NAS drive at home, and you can even do a cloud backup, to your home. There's many ways to do this. Definitely make sure your backups are encrypted and has some sort of ransomware detection. Some ransomwares target both backup as well as your production environment. His closing remarks here. He's mentioned you should speak with and only go with references. In most cases, this applies. I think in the dental industry, it's a little bit unique going with references because a lot of dentists who provide IT opinions are generally incorrect. This article is a prime example of some things that are not within best practice. Another article here, I'm going to show you a forum post. This guy he doesn't trust his IT company because they quoted him $18,000, and he's built his computer in the past and he's ran Cat 6. And this guy said it sounds like an overkill and ripoff. Most people who don't understand technology or haven't been exposed to technology, commercial technology in this way, generally don't know what you need. Which is why when you look for a reputable IT company who has experience in these fields, they should have the right partnerships. And that's why they're giving you this advice, and that's why it costs so much. If you want to know why it costs so much, look at my video description below. Send me an email, contact. I can explain to you exactly what each line item costs. If you have any existing quotes that you have from other companies, that you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you and explain to you what these functions are and why they matter to your business. Of course, when we present our solutions to customers, we provide to them like almost like a wholesome solution where it protects their business for the long run, and we even provide a roadmap for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And if we've had they're not our clients, but we've had inquiries where they say, well, you know what, Tony, we could do without X function and Z function, but we would only want Y. We don't take on those clients just because it puts us at risk. We are insured, and you should look for a reputable IT company that has insurance, because it shows that they know what they're doing and they're serious about actually protecting patient data as well as your business. Anyway, that's in conclusion of some tips and tricks to how to find a good IT company and how to find a reputable IT company. And just be careful with these articles, because all of these articles will get you working. That's the thing. The perception that everything's working. It's just that when things stop working, how do you mitigate these risks? Anyway, my name is Tony. I'm an IT business consultant, and I will be posting more videos related to dental IT technology. We are building a clinic here. We're assisting in a build in a clinic here that I will be documenting and providing some insight that we're doing. Anyway, like and follow. I'll see you guys next time.